I'm an ex-governor, an ex-actor, and a keyboard player. There's nothing I like better than to gig with the underprivileged. Take it, boy. Take it, boy. Live from New York, it's Saturday night!
Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime podcast. We're Gary Seath and Brad Robinson.
And you're not.
This week, we're talking about Season 1, Episode 19 with host Madeline Kahn and musical guest Carly Simon. Brad, this episode was so much fun.
So much fun. So much, in fact, we couldn't keep it to ourselves. Please welcome from the Saturday Night Network and SNL Hall of Fame podcast, Kirstin Turnbull. Kirstin, hello.
Hello, how are you? Great to meet you and join you on tonight's episode.
Thank you, Kirstin.
Thank you for coming. You picked a good one.
Yes, that I feel confident in saying as well. It was a powerhouse of female talent, like no other way around it. So excited.
It really was. And I mean, coming into this episode, I'm a huge Madeline Kahn fan, so I had very high expectations, and I felt like, oh, she brought it and lived up to all of my expectations.
Yeah, it was a nice reminder for me of some of the movies I'd seen when I was younger, and she'd kind of fallen off my radar, but it was wonderful to get reacquainted with her as a talented actress and performer. And I think I'm going to have to revisit some of the movies she did, having done a bit of research for this one.
She was in some really great roles, and she's funny.
Yeah.
Like in Blazing Saddles, just the Lily von Stupp character she plays is amazing. She's great.
And she came out of the gates blazing, no pun intended. You know, her first film role was only 4 years before this. What's Up, Doc? She's already had 2 Oscar nominations by this point for Best Supporting Actor, Blazing Saddles, and the year before, Paper Moon. I mean, not to mention, again, the year before, Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. I mean, she's on a roll by the time she shows up at this show.
Absolutely. And known as a Broadway actress, she would have, had she not unfortunately died from cancer, she would have had an EGOT.
Oh my God, yeah.
100%.
I didn't remember that she had died in 1999.
There you go. Oh my God, has it been that long now? Wow,
yeah,
lovely.
I didn't realize it'd been so long.
Yeah.
She does it all.
Yeah, she really does. Like, I was just thinking she could have easily been the female Billy Crystal of hosting award shows.
Absolutely.
Totally.
That would have been a great role for her.
The thought that came to my mind this episode, as far as song, dance, performance, comedian, actor, like Elliot Gould, but dare I say better?
I think so.
I agree.
Elliot Gould's always Elliot Gould, but she has a bit more chameleon ability to her.
That's actually a very good point. Yeah, especially as we see in this episode, she's in a lot. She does a lot, and it's a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, for anyone who'd seen her movies and hadn't known about her Broadway or theater background, that would answer why she sang so much. It was so natural on stage.
Yeah, it seems to be a recurring theme this first season. All these hosts really like to do a song at some point, if not 2, sometimes 3.
And we've talked about this before, Kirstin, how this era of celebrity was really, everyone was an entertainer. They weren't just an actor or just a singer or just this or that. Everyone was multi-talented, and someone like Madeline Kahn comes on who not only can she sing and act and do everything, she does all of them so well, and it's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, she's that generation after the Debbie Reynolds, where to get into Hollywood, you had to do all of these things. You had to sing and usually tap dance, act, perform theater. Like, it was very much a well-rounded, what we would now call a triple threat. But that was who you were. If you were an entertainer, you studied all of these. She was made from that factory.
Yeah. And she fits this particular show at this particular point perfect, where Saturday Night Live is still in that variety show mold. It isn't a straight on comedy show yet. For somebody like her who is so well versed in all those different facets, it's a perfect fit for her.
I agree. It was very much more of a talent show. I like variety show better. That is a nicer way to say it.
She even brings that out in the rest of the cast too, with John singing with her and just some of the things that she did with Gilda and even Jane. It was, yeah. That's what's fun about the hosts now. And I guess the cast too, right? Like, they all have different talents than, like you're saying, just I don't mean just, but like just in quotes, a stand-up or an improv actor. Sure. Brad, this episode was originally supposed to happen a few weeks prior to this.
It was a month
correct?
prior, I think, right? I think April 10th was the original date that she was supposed to be on. And they went dark with her episode. And then they tried to figure out how to move forward during the strike. And that's where we got the Ron Nessen episode, which, everything's kind of very stagnant. We noticed it a little bit, Raquel Welch. You noticed it a couple times in this episode, too, like a slumber party sketch. You definitely noticed not a lot of camera moves, but that's when she was really supposed to host.
Well, this is exciting. Should we just get into it?
Let's do it.
Should we address, Kirstin, you may not be familiar with the week prior, they did the Claudine Longet invitational sketch. Do you remember the sketch at all?
No, I don't. Do I need to go back and watch it?
Well, it's a Michael O'Donoghue sketch where the idea was Claudine Longet had accidentally shot her lover, and they made a sketch. Chevy and Jane are playing announcers, and basically they're showing skiers going down the ski slope. And just as they start to hit a fall or stumble, they put a sound effect of a gunshot going in. Like, oh, he was accidentally shot by Claudine Longet.
Yes.
Oh, he was accidentally shot again. Oh, this one just grazed him. Then you hear another gunshot. Nope, that one got him. Anyway, her ex-husband was Andy Williams, who was so upset seeing it, was writing to NBC, threatening to sue that because of that sketch, one of the only times ever, and definitely the first time, they actually had to issue an apology. So on this episode, which you don't see on the Peacock or the discs, they had Don Pardo with an SNL or Saturday Night screenshot, and he delivered an apology, which I haven't been able to find. And I've tried to scour the internet. I can't find it. But Gary, you have the text, right, of what he said?
I do. So apparently this was over just a still graphic that said Saturday Night. And Don Pardo came on and said, on April 24th, 1976, Saturday Night included a sketch about a Claudine Longet Invitational Ski Championship in Vail, Colorado, as part of the program's topical humor. It is desirable to correct any misunderstanding that a suggestion was made that, in fact, a crime had been committed. The satire was fictitious and its intent only humorous. This is a statement of apology if the material was misinterpreted. That is the most lawyerly statement that could have been written in 1976.
They got some real jabs in there, though.
Yeah.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, go back and check it out. It's a pretty crazy sketch. It was a Chevy Chase idea. Started as a Chevy Chase idea. He was going to make a joke on Update, and then O'Donoghue took it and snowballed it into an actual sketch. So
It's a really funny sketch.
Okay, note to self, I'll be watching it right when we're done.
Yeah. All right. Well, now I think we can get into this week's show.
let's.
So the cold open starts with Chevy on stage playing the keyboard or the electric organ, and he introduces himself as Ronald Reagan. So,
Because why would somebody else not do this?
right. So Chevy comes on and he plays very well, some keyboard, and then he looks to the camera and starts addressing the camera as Ronald Reagan, and then turns to Garrett to do a sax solo every time, and continually calls him boy, to which Garrett takes offense and eventually just punches him and knocks him off the stage. We get the fall and the live from New York.
Part of me thought this was going to be another version of Very White.
Did you?
I
Were you
did when I first saw
hoping
him
that
playing
it was-
the keyboard. No, I just saw him at the keyboard, and I
I see.
thought it was another version of Very White. But no, it was something drastically different.
Yes.
Chevy's. If you listen to the draft that I did on the other on Saturday Night Network, you'll know I'm not a fan of Chevy, and I find
Neither am I.
these. Okay, good. I find these openers very much a presentation of Chevy loving Chevy, and so I don't have a lot of time for them. And he's got these pratfalls, and it's knocking over metal chairs and.
Oh,
Seems like a
yes.
cheap way to get a laugh.
I forgot that there were two metal folding chairs conveniently placed for him to fall into.
Always. And I didn't mind when Molly Shannon does it, but I do mind when Chevy does it.
I'm with you on this. We've had many discussions where I'm definitely Team Belushi. But I will say, to Chevy's credit, going back and watching these episodes that we have from the very beginning, it is fun. I have actually enjoyed watching Chevy start out. Before he's become total Chevy, he's starting to get there around now, but watching it from the beginning, it is enjoyable. And I mean, this sketch wasn't that bad as far as Chevy goes. Although I did, the first time I heard it, said, did he just call him boy? Like, did I hear that right?
Yes. Multiple times.
Multiple. Well,
Yeah. There are some episodes that haven't aged well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few
There's-
in this one. There's a few sketches.
There are a few jokes in here that I was like, this Seems like a bit much, but okay.
I mean, I was waiting for Garrett to hit him with the saxophone. That's how I thought this was going to end. I thought he was going to get clocked with the saxophone and then fall down and give the line.
Howard Shore wouldn't allow it.
Well, also, why ruin a good saxophone?
Exactly.
But, and to your point, there's something about the offensiveness of this sketch that does not make it as funny as I think they wanted it to be. At least definitely not now. It definitely does not come off as funny as it might have been 76.
Yeah. It's a bold way to open.
Yeah.
It is a bold way to open.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we then get the complete sweetness and sassiness of the monologue from Madeline to cleanse the palate.
Absolutely.
She got a great ovation. Did that not feel like it went on long? I mean, in a good way.
It was also the Mother's Day thing. I mean, that's working in her favor.
That's true.
It was very sweet. It was very sweet, and it was endearing, and it felt extremely real. I know part of her performance style is a dash of awkwardness, but she genuinely seemed like she had some nerves.
Yeah. And,
tripped over a couple words, which for someone who's, an established performer, that feels very real. And it's you feel a connection to them, and the audience reacted. And then the song was clever and funny, and it was short and sweet. So I think it was just what was needed.
I knew she'd sing a song.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, who would take that bet? Yes,
Right.
She would sing a song.
But you bring up a good point, and I think she was very nervous about performing on live television. I think a lot of those fears and anxieties and hiccups you kind of see. Yeah, it was her genuine, worry about pulling this show off on live TV.
I think Anthony Perkins kind of addressed it in his monologue where he talked about coming out as himself, which was awkward for him. And I think that is part of it. And then combined with the fact that, like you said, Brad, these are stage actors. When you're acting on stage, there's a finite number of seats in the theater. And here you're on TV and it's going out to millions of people live. And I think that adds an element. And it's not as forgiving, right? If you're in theater and you're 1 foot over to the right, it's fine. But on TV, it messes up the shot. And, all week, I'm sure they're getting grilled, hit this mark, hit that mark. For stage actors that aren't used to it, it's brings this level of anxiety up.
Well, let's double down on that. And the fact that they may have changed things last minute. I mean, all of these seasoned performers from theater and traditional Hollywood are used to rehearsals.
Yeah.
And here we are throwing away scripts and throwing up cue cards with new content. So it was a medium that people were still, getting their sea legs for. And I think the freedom of it would be exhilarating to some, but it's why there were probably a lot of people that we would have liked to see on the show that we didn't.
Sure.
Yeah, and these theater people are used to having more than 3 days of rehearsal before they put something up in front of an audience.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, John needed no rehearsal for his next bit as the wilderness comedian Shecky Adams, who, which I thought was a great name.
Yeah.
Playing off of Grizzly Adams and Shecky Green.
Yeah, exactly.
And John is the wilderness comedian who is introduced with Dan's voiceover as coming from Las Vegas and then gave it all up to go live in the woods to make animals laugh. And I thought this was so goofy and so fun, especially the animal laughter.
Oh, the animal laughter. That was cute. That was funny. I'll give you that. It started off funny enough, and I thought it was I think cute's going to be the wrong word, but it had a decent premise to it. It just didn't go anywhere for me. And I don't know. Was anybody else surprised to see this as the first sketch of the night?
Yes.
Just seemed like an odd choice to lead off with.
Yes. I did write that down, that this was an odd way to start.
But it had its moments.
Yeah, I like animals, animal puppets, animals laughing, the idea that animals understand comedy and especially dad jokes. That's funny. But yeah, it could have ended a bit stronger. I mean, there's great dad jokes out there. But yes, I think it would have been more of a 10-1 because it was kind of wacky.
I feel like Zweibel had a lot to do with this too, with the Shecky Adams of it all and the Catskill stand-up routine. There has to be so much Zweibel in this.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So much of the sketch writing back in the day, I can't help but wonder how much was influenced by alcohol and narcotics. That's always running through my mind when I see some of these. What were they on when they thought this was the funniest thing on the planet?
Right.
Well, next we moved into some powerhouse stuff, didn't we?
He really did. I mean, we went from Shecky Adams to Barbara Walters and Marlene Dietrich. The talk show Not for Ladies Only. So it was hosted by Barbara Walters, or Gilda, once again as Baba Wawa.
Baba Wawa.
And she's interviewing Marlene Dietrich. Although when I first heard it, I did have to go back and listen again to who she was introducing because of...
Did you really?
Well, because I the way in which she muddled Marlene Dietrich, I was like, wait, what? And then it just becomes a standard talk show between the two with these accents / speech impediment that they just talk about things, and it's very hard to understand.
Marwina, what is it like to be a living legend?
It has been a really rich experience.
I'm so impressed. You're so wide and slender. How do you stay so slim?
Swimming keeps me swim. My daily regimen includes swimming 12 laps in my pool. It is wonderful for my legs.
Marwina,
Right here.
tell us your secret of perpetual youth.
I get massaged regularly. And I have had everything lifted.
You mean you've had your legs lifted?
Everything. Even my wheel.
What?
My wheel.
Your wheel?
What?
Drop it. Let's drop it.
It's really smart. I mean, it's a great Rosie Schuster piece, and it's just from top to bottom. It's great. And it's funny. We just saw Baba Wawa last week for the first time. Really funny. It's like impression Gilda had done back in the Lampoon days, spoofing Barbara Walters' show at the time. What was it called? Not for Women Only. But yeah, it's just great to see this already 1 week after she introduces the character. Here it is again.
For me, the most fun of this was watching them try to W every word.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it was less, it wasn't necessarily the script. It was the breezy but intense effort to hit every one of those W's. And at one point, Gilda took a beat and acknowledged that in her own way. That's what I love about her, when she was always the best at kind of, wasn't breaking the fourth wall or breaking character necessarily, but a bit of a wink with the audience to say, oh, I'm in this and I'm going for it.
The fact that they got through this without a stumble is amazing.
Yeah, Madeline really kept character.
She did.
She's a professional.
They all kept character in the next sketch, which probably wasn't hard, but it was the slumber party sketch with Gilda, Madeline, Jane, and Lorraine, where they're at a sleepover and Madeline is telling all of her friends how babies are made. And the other girls are totally grossed out by
It
it.
is also true because I happen to have read it in this book.
What did it say?
It said the first step in human reproduction is the main.
Ew, that's disgusting!
It is true.
Well, I just know it can't be true because nothing that's sickening is true.
Boogers are true.
Madeline was my favorite in this sketch. Absolutely. Yes, she was the host, but I think she was the best performer here. While they were all fun, she played it pretty authentically, and the others were hamming it up a little bit, but Madeline played it pretty straight. And I love that, though I do also appreciate some of the lines from Gilda, I think it was her, when they said, how long does it take? Depends on how big the girl's stomach is and how quickly she digests.
Gilda had a great line about when they said, oh, they could adopt. And she said, adopted children are such a pain. You have to teach them to look like you.
Yeah.
But yeah, Madeline holds this together. She's great.
Yeah. Where it could have gotten too silly, she really kept it grounded.
They all did, I feel like. They all were really good. I didn't love Lorraine in this because I felt she kind of veered a little bit more towards Valley Girl a little bit, which I didn't think she needed. But other than that, I thought they were all great on their own. They really held great characters. Gilda was great as pre-Judy Miller. She's great as the little girl in this. And just, all four of them. It's just great to see them all shine in a meaty piece, And shout out to Marilyn Suzanne Miller, because this is like her first real sketch I think she's gotten on this season after being on for a while. So just, it's top to bottom great.
Yeah. I love some, when there were sketches like this, they really gave them time to breathe. Like they didn't feel as rushed. And listen, I could argue both sides of this. I can appreciate when sometimes they do let them breathe when you really want to tell that full story, but there are other times when they don't know how to edit. My complaints about not knowing how to edit are more recent episodes of SNL, but these ones all felt longer. Like they really took their time in a nice way.
It did. It was only 5 minutes, but I thought it was going to be longer, or I felt longer because it felt like we got so much from it.
You know, I think it might have felt longer. And this is one of the instances in this episode I noticed the shooting it during the strike of it all. Almost the whole sketch was done in that wide shot with all 4 girls. They took a random close-up of Gilda, which felt kind of weird from time to time. But I think that's why it might have felt a little long, is they weren't cutting back and forth. They just let it play on all 4 ladies, which was really great because Madeline's front and center, right in the middle. And it just worked so well that way. Sometimes
simple can be better. That's definitely a theater trick too.
Oh, yeah. And it's just all dark in the background, so you're not lighting that whole set. So,
and they really stick the landing on this, too. At the end, where they're spending 5 minutes talking, it's gross, it's disgusting. And Lorraine, who was probably the one who seemed like the most disgusted the whole time, at the end, all the girls are, I'll never do that. I never will. And the last line is Lorraine, I might.
Yeah.
Perfect. It was a great ending. It was just so perfect.
Yep. I agree. Yep.
It was nice to go from that to just Garrett by himself, too, because you had this kind of ensemble piece that went on, and then Garrett comes on as Mark Mbutu from Namibia, appealing to the people watching the show for their fondue sets.
I love this.
Really?
I thought it was hilarious because we grew up with fondue sets. So it was...
Right.
I thought it was so funny. Like it could only be in that era when we all had fondue sets. And it was just so random because it would be like, what would it be like now? Your Instant Pot.
Yes.
Because we know everyone bought them and they're sitting on a shelf. And so give them to people that will use them. It was funny.
I thought it was funny. I liked it.
I didn't like the sketch, but how do I explain this? You know how many times, Gary, we've seen sketches and we're like, these don't work because it's a not great sketch in a bad episode.
Yeah.
As much as I didn't necessarily like this sketch, I didn't mind it because this episode has been so good. And this is an instance of like maybe a little bit of a subpar sketch, a oneer directly into camera. It is a good change of pace. And as much as I didn't necessarily think it was that funny, I thought it played well in this episode. Like you just said, it was a great breather from what we just saw. It was fun to show Garrett off. And this is an instance of them putting the right type of sketch in at the right time. And that I liked about this.
Yeah. And I liked that it was Garrett.
Yeah.
He seems to do better just by himself to camera. And this was, I thought, a good one.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And not what you'd expect. Fondue sets? Come on. We could not have predicted that.
I did enjoy the line where he says, we have enough of the little sternos. We don't need those. We got those from the Germans.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Thought it was a good, fun sketch.
There's some clever, it's clever and it's intelligent in that way that it's not just silly, like give us your fondue sets, which is funny, but you know, that type of comment about we got that from the Germans, like that's a take.
Yeah.
So I appreciate when it's done really well that way and it's very smart. So they can have a voice and and be sharp and silly at the same time. So that's why I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well, Kirstin, did you enjoy the next sketch? Because it involves two things that one, we know you don't like, and I'm intrigued to hear your opinion on the other. Chevy Chase and the Muppets, where Chevy comes out and he walks by the trunk we saw last week that all the Muppets basically closed up shop in, which I was surprised to see them back after last week. All of a sudden they're back right away next week.
Right.
But now that the show's a hit, maybe Chevy can talk to the producer and get the Muppets back on.
This one got a big old meh for me. It was very Chevy, very much reading the cue cards, interacting with the Muppet, and I love the Muppets. Who doesn't? What kind of monster would not love the Muppets? But it was
Brad.
Oh, you can't even remember half their names, Gary. Please don't pretend this is all me.
No. I like the Muppets. I like the Muppets when they're interacting with humans. But
yes.
Yeah.
So seeing Scred, the Muppet that we see with Chevy, he does really well with humans and interacting with humans. So I thought this was going to be a lot of fun and it might be good. This to me, like the way this didn't work was more a comment on Chevy, just because I've seen Scred work with everyone else.
Well, and I had that note too near the end. I said, it's very but maybe if it was somebody other than Chevy, like Gilda, like him and Gilda were great in the back, or,
Gilda
John
would
and
work.
Danny, just almost anybody other than Chevy.
I don't know that Danny would have worked, but he's kind of awkward. That's all.
That's true.
But
you got to play along with the Muppets, just even a little bit.
Yeah.
He looked like too much like he was doing everyone a favor. And no, indulge our child side and make us feel good about the Muppets. And no, he took us out of that, being a bit of a jerk.
Yeah. Well, good news, Gary. They're gone for season 1. We will not see them again.
Oh.
They make one more appearance the start of season 2, but the Muppets are finally done. First we lost Albert Brooks, now the Muppets.
Yeah.
We're like a Gary Weiss away from the trifecta.
We'll get there. Hold on to Gary Weiss.
That's right. I've turned on Gary Weiss. Sorry. It happened.
The show completely bounces back, though, after Chevy's poor performance. And we see
100%
Howard Shore and his all-monster band. This was awesome. I loved this.
This is amazing. This whole sketch is amazing from top to bottom.
Yeah, this was my favorite. This was the highlight for me. This Bride of Frankenstein, a little bit of a, revisit a character. And then she sings I Feel Pretty.
Yeah.
And she starts flailing around. It was amazing. And I didn't realize Paul Schaefer was one of the, I don't remember the name. Like there were some other faces in there making cameos, but this was the highlight for me. It was allowing Madeline to shine in all she does, sing, dance, perform, and kind of be that star of the scene. And yeah, I love this one. It only got better.
Yeah, I loved, you mentioned Paul Schaefer. Like he really got to shine as...
Gary, was that his hair, do you think? We've talked about his hair a few times this season. Or did they wig him, or did they just comb those sides up? I legitimately couldn't tell.
Oh, there was more hair there than there are on the sides. So It was definitely a wig.
All right.
This was, hands down, this was one of my favorite musical performances of the season.
I think this is one of the best sketches of the season. I mean, I had almost no notes because I was just entranced watching this the entire time. I literally had, this is amazing. And my only other note is, yes, the cast. When all of a sudden, like the cast comes out and starts singing and dancing and joining in the routine. It's not just the band. I mean, the set is amazing. They've got fire. The band's into it. They're all dressed up. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, everyone should check that one out again. I'm going to watch it again after this.
After you watch the Claudine Longet.
Yeah, I've got
a
list.
Yeah.
I am making a list. And funny that you said you had nothing to add because you're entranced by the sketch. I went ham with a yellow highlighter when I was just, I like this one. And so that's what happened to me when I was watching it.
There wasn't anything to not watch. You couldn't not be glued to it. Like you had mentioned, she's singing, she's dancing. And I was kind of surprised too, again, thinking back of the whole strike and the technical aspect of it. They had tons of camera angles going on. You saw the band, you had the guys at the piano, you had her in a wide and a close. There's just tons of stuff going on. Even when the cast came out through the tunnel, there's just so much going on. This is like one of the most intricate sets we've seen, which was great. There's just so much of like, I was kind of half joking about, of course, she's going to sing a bunch of songs in this episode, but I didn't even think this was a song. Like it was so good. It was like, she could sing the whole episode if she did this.
Given how much it was rehearsed, I've got to assume it was one of the first sketches.
Gotta think, yeah.
That they would have, come together when they were preparing for the episode, because it was, the lighting, every cue was on. So I wonder how quickly, let's do Bride of Frankenstein, but do it this way, and let's sing this. And then they rehearsed as much as they could because it felt very polished.
Well, I wonder if they had started this a few weeks prior when Madeline Kahn was supposed to host, and it maybe was a smaller piece. And then they were like, well, we've got that down. Let's expand on it now because we have more time. I don't know.
I had the same thought. Like maybe this is something they had written up for the first week. They rehearsed it that week because she did a live bit back in that first time. She introduced the rerun that they played that episodes. And so she was in the studio, and I think they were trying to put that episode on originally. So to your point, maybe they had rehearsed this one week already and they kind of had it in their back pocket. So when they picked it up this week, it wasn't from scratch, and that's why it's so good.
Well, that for me, all of that goodwill was like a wave that I could then ride through Weekend Update, which was next.
Here, here.
I felt like I needed it this week. It's the standard, Chevy open on the phone. And then he rolls through some jokes. I think these were more timely jokes that I just didn't know from 1976.
They felt a bit more timely and a bit more political, like in number and recently. Like there's a lot of those political jokes rambling for the first few minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. And with political figures who were smaller, like senators and congressmen that you would know in 1976, but not in 2023. So the only thing that stood out to me was the artist rendering came up as an image, and I thought we were going to
for no reason.
Yeah, I thought we were going to get stuck with another Patty Hearst trial joke, but it didn't. We went to another telephone joke,
which I'm assuming both of you did not like. Chevy hamming it up on the phone.
My comments, my notes were very political, not very funny.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You could tell Kirstin's upset she even has to talk about this right now. She's like, can we just fast forward through update? Because I don't wish to talk about Chevy Chase at all, which I love.
I'm just glad that I'm not alone. Not necessarily 100%, but that, yeah, I agree. Like it was very political, but it was too specific. Those weren't jokes that would age at all because they were such a moment in time.
Right.
Therefore, it wasn't very funny because I couldn't laugh with him. It felt like he was, really just telling his own thing, and he wasn't really considering the audience. He thought it was funny.
I did enjoy the end of Weekend Update Part 1 with I thought it was a pretty smart marijuana joke about may cause some damage to your memory, and then he repeats the joke.
Yes. And
then he has a great callback, which they've been doing a few times this season about send in your samples. And then he really hits it where he forgets the address where to send it to. Like I thought that whole little 1, 2, 3 was a really funny bit. I did like that one.
Right.
Can we talk about this week's example of things that don't age well with the cadet joke? When they show the picture, they showed the picture of the female cadet in line in the dress uniform with everybody. And they make some joke about reported homosexual. And here he is standing in line, like Edgar somebody or other. And they show him as a woman there and just, it's like one of those, like, this does not play.
That's funny because now that you say it, I remember hearing that joke, but at the moment I threw that away. It's just like, this isn't.
You should have.
I think I got closed-minded to the second half of Chevy because I don't even remember some of that. I think I just went to a special place in my head.
And this is why sometimes the commercial break of Weekend Update works.
Yes.
Yes.
And I thought this commercial break was great. It was a live commercial, which is always nice.
Yes.
It was
with the host. Another bonus.
With the host. Yeah. And Jane was playing Rosie, who you might remember from the Bounty commercials.
Yeah, that is an old callback, but yes.
Yes. And it took me a minute to remember that. But
yeah,
she's working I liked the name of her shop was Rosie's Hosiery Shop and Grill.
So yeah, that's great.
It looks like more like a diner counter. And Madeline Kahn comes in and Jane as Rosie. How great was Jane?
How great was Jane?
She was fantastic. Even just the look to camera at the end. What a gem.
Yeah, she was great. And she had the big wig on, just like Rosie's hair in those old commercials. It was fabulous. It was a lot of fun. Talking about Madeline Kahn's pantyhose and how it made her legs wet.
I wonder how many younger ladies would not know what the heck they were talking about because who wears pantyhose anymore?
or who knows what Bounty the quicker picker upper is anymore? I mean, there's so much in this that you won't know.
Yeah.
Pantyhose.
Yeah. I don't know. I did like when Madeline Kahn faked like taking off the pantyhose and he pulls them up to the counter and literally wrings them out. Like it was great. Yeah. Like this, it's so dumb and funny. It's great. It's like such a great spoof of a really popular commercial.
And then she just jumps up on the counter.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. That was great.
Yeah, that had good live energy. That scene and how it ended.
Definitely.
Yeah. I like this new. I mean, the breaks aren't the greatest thing in Weekend Update, but I like the fact that now they're going to at least live bits, which is a lot more fun than replaying the old commercial parodies that we criticize every week.
Luckily, they came back to something that everyone's familiar with a Generalissimo Francisco Franco joke.
With Chevy Chase not being able to get a joke out.
Right. Because the audience started laughing. He mentions Generalissimo Francisco Franco and the audience starts laughing.
Pavlov's dog. Yes.
Yeah. And it was kind of charming. He's smiling to himself and like trying to get it out.
Even he can't believe this joke's still working.
Right. It's been, I think, almost every episode they've made a Generalissimo Francisco Franco joke. But
speaking of almost every episode, Gary, I need to know what is your take on this week's appearance of Emily Litilla?
I liked the violins on television.
Why are you so hesitant to say that you like this? It's a funny bit. You can like it.
No, I do like it. Look, I like violins on television. I still felt like it could have been 30 seconds shorter or maybe less. That's all. Tighten it up. That's what I want to see from Emily Litilla. Tighten it up.
Kirsten, tell us your take. Emily Litilla fan? Yes, no? I don't like this pause.
Neutral.
Oh.
Yeah, neutral.
Neutral as in like sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't, or it's always just
yeah, a little take it or leave it. Like, yeah, middle of the road. Yeah. That'd be a good way to say it. Yeah. Right. I'm also just really excited to talk about Carly Simon, to be honest. I'm just like
really?
At the bit to
oh
talk
goodness.
about. Yeah.
I'm gonna move past how I love Chevy hiding behind a cow.
Look, wait, let's not rush to Carly Simon because this news for cattle I thought was funny.
I did too. I actually yes, I give him credit. I missed Garrett coming back and doing the standard bit, but this is probably my favorite deviation that they've done.
Yes. Just Chevy leaning over behind the picture of a cow and mooing. I thought it was a lot of fun. And then he pops
back out with the shit-eating grin.
Yes. Yes.
Those are moments when Chevy being Chevy works.
See, this is what I'm saying. And they do get fewer and farther in between as I've noticed the season's gone on, but he does have moments where he is fun and genuinely fun to watch.
Yeah. Now, Kirsten, the floor is yours, please.
So I am curious because she pre-taped one song and then was live for the second. Is that what happened here?
No, she pre-taped.
No, they were both pre-taped.
Were they? Which is interesting because I looked it up and it was attributed to stage fright.
Right.
I can't think of another musical act that has pre-taped for that reason. And she was so darn popular that they said, sure, of course. I mean, Madeline Kahn gave her credit for showing up and being on the show and
but even Madeline Kahn seemed a bit confused as to why she didn't perform live.
Yes. She didn't have much poker face for that one. No.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was a last minute thing. And then why was Chevy singing and playing the cowbell?
Who knows? The official story they give is to the stage fright point. She was so nervous that he apparently went on to make her feel more comfortable. That's what I've read a bunch of times. It feels like it's.
I believe the reports you were referring to were all written by Chevy Chase.
Probably.
That's
well, and even if he was in there, did you have to do a zoom in? Like, what was it? The shot where they zoomed in on him halfway through the end of that song. I'm also upset the fact that Chevy Chase is now hijacking this segment. Because as much as I don't like Carly Simon, which I did remember during this performance, I actually don't like Carly Simon. But I am actually upset that he is hijacking her segment.
For sure. It would be one thing if he came in and, hit the cowbell a few times and then, retreated back. But he sang.
Yes.
I swear they turned his mic down because he was really loud when he first started singing and then it went down. And I don't think he would have modulated his voice on his own. Someone put him back down because he was loud.
Are you saying Chevy Chase can't edit himself? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, maybe.
Yes. Okay.
Why didn't you like her?
I'm just not a fan. Like, I don't.
But impartial or don't like her?
Oh, impartial is probably a better word. Impartial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not like wearing a Carly Simon t-shirt here, but I can respect that she's written some amazing songs.
I can respect that as well. Like, this is a woman who had already released a greatest hits album at this point the year before. And it went gold in like 3 weeks. Like, I'm not going to deny she's definitely talented. I mean, we've complained a bunch too on this of the level of musical acts they've been getting this season. Mm-hmm. You get a lot of Esther Phillips Anne Murray's, people who their prime was 20 years in the past. So I will give the show credit. And I'm sure, again, that's why they let her go ahead and pre-record. But to get somebody of this stature, that popular of this time, is pretty great.
I mean, can we also just give it up for someone who brushes out their curly hair? Can you imagine someone, not ironically, wearing their hair like that? And she's a beautiful woman. That's just a style that was very specific to that time.
Yes.
That women spend a lot of money trying not to do for the last 2-3 decades. It was a look.
It was. And she has a lot of hair.
She did have a lot of hair.
Which it was emphasized by the soft focus and the just felt like there was a very thick stocking. One of those pantyhose was behind the lens. And that's what we were looking at.
What's her does anyone know her reputation? Like, was she a bit of a diva with her, rider and her demands, or was she just...
No, I think it was the stage fright thing. She's talked about it a bunch, which is weird because she has toured before and she's seen therapists and people about it. And it's definitely been a reoccurring thing, apparently, through her career, the little bit that I read up about it. But it's just interesting because, she would tour at times, but then she couldn't do this, which... maybe the TV aspect of it. You were talking about Madeline Kahn before. It's one thing to be in front of the studio audience, but to perform live, where you're going to go out to millions of people live. Maybe that's what really freaked her out. It's probably more that, I guess.
I just had this thought, and I don't know if you know this, Brad, but was this pre-recorded segment done at Dress? Was this something that she was planning to do live and then backed out at the last minute, and they had it from?
I don't think so, because I feel like that would have been part of the story you've heard, and I've only ever heard it was always she did a pre-tape. So I want to feel like she came in saying, "Gotta do pre-tape."
Well, then let me ask you this: why play them back to back?
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for it. I didn't mind them together. It wasn't bad back to back. Did anybody else think that was Will Forte playing sax?
Yes, right? I did.
Okay, good.
Oh, I've got to go back and look at that.
Yeah, add it to your list, Kirstin, because
it's on my list right now. I love Will Forte.
In the first song she sang.
Okay.
Yeah, he's front stage. Yeah. They cut to a camera and he's right there. And I'm like, he's got that Will Forte MacGruber bowl cut happening. I could have sworn it was him 20 years or 30 years earlier.
Spot on. Yeah.
Amazing.
Speaking of spot on, how about Dan's Nixon impression? Without a monkey mask on this time.
This was a fun sketch. This one I made note of really had some elements that didn't age well.
Yes.
A lot of slurs. Of slurs. And hey, I guess it was a time when people did feel okay to say these things, but
I think there's
strange
two things
to see those coming out of Madeline's mouth.
Yeah, I think there's two things. That one, yes, we've mentioned this a couple of times, that the time of when it was, people were a lot less politically correct. But two, that the sketch that this is based on the book, The Final Days, where the kind of one of the big bombshells of that book is that Nixon was so racist and so prejudiced against so many people that it's really kind of the point of this sketch is really blasting Nixon for the horrible person he is. Mm-hmm. You couldn't write something like this now using that language if you wanted to go after, Trump or whoever. You'd have to be much more PC about it.
Well, you just have to be more clever about it. I think there are ways that, look at someone like Michael Che, who can insinuate racism without saying the slurs. Maybe he's not a best example, but
no, it's not a bad example. No, I do totally.
She repeated them so many times, like we kind of got the point, and it started to feel a little overdone at that moment.
I agree with you. The Madeline Kahn slurs were harder to take than Nixon, than Aykroyd doing Nixon. That part, it was a little bit tougher to watch.
Yeah. But outside of that, I enjoyed how she performed this character. I thought, this is going to sound so corny, but the ability to act, fake right, express emotion, the VO really worked, and she made it look easy. I think most of us think we could perform like that, but fat chance, most of us can't. But I was making note of just how well she did that. And then there were some good lines in there. Dick's leg swelled up again today. Good. Yeah. And then the classic, that never happened with Dick Nixon, was in the White House. You see that in every, highlight reel of SNL history.
Oh, when he's at the Kennedy portrait.
You, Kennedy, you always looked so good. They're going to find out about you someday, though. Oh, yes. Yes, having sex with women, the president, within these very walls. That never happened when Dick Nixon was in the White House.
Never. I think Henry Kissinger was the first one to suggest that resignation was inevitable. Now, he told Dick not to think of it as a resignation, but as humiliation with honor.
It was smart writing, very smart writing, with the exception of the excessive slurs.
Yeah.
It was a Franken and Davis sketch that they had tried writing because this book had just come out like a week or two before this episode aired, but they had leaked a lot of stories from it so people knew what it was about. So they were dying to get something on the air. And Tom Davis has admitted this story allegedly that him and Franken couldn't figure out how to write and started tripping on acid. And that's how they came up with the idea to write this. And the two of them are like walking around the 17th floor, like tripping, doing dueling Nixon impressions. And they finally come up with this idea. And the original plan was to have Lorne intro it and was going to sit behind the desk and tell the audience that as a producer, he had to decide whether or not that the show was going to ridicule Richard Nixon because it seemed too easy of a joke. But NBC overruled him and said it had to go on. So we're not happy about this, but here we go. And then they were going to do all the Nixon bits. And then it was Ann Beats who had the idea of using Madeline Kahn as Pat Nixon and like through her diary, which it works so much better.
So much better. Yeah.
Also, you just validated my hypothesis about the drug use and the sketch creation.
Yeah.
There you go.
But this is the first big Franken and Davis piece, aside from the Untouchables. We saw the Untouchables, but this is kind of the first really big Franken and Davis piece we get to see. I mean, Al Franken still, I think, lists this as one of his top 10 political sketches in the history of the show.
They made more David Eisenhower jokes with Chevy as David Eisenhower.
They love picking on David Eisenhower. Yes.
It was fun seeing a lot of cameos. So you saw Chevy as David Eisenhower and Gilda as Julie Nixon, Garrett as Sammy Davis Jr., John comes on as Henry Kissinger.
You know I'm not a crook, Henry. You know that I'm innocent. I am, Henry. I had nothing to do with Watergate, the bugging of Watergate. I had nothing to do with the cover-up. Nothing to do with the break-in of Daniel Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office. Nothing to do with the guy who was killed in Florida.
What guy was killed in Florida, Mr. President?
You mean you don't know about the young Cuban who was run over by the... Never mind, Henry. Get down on your knees and pray. Pray with me. Pray with me, Henry.
Oh, Mr. President, please. We've got a big day tomorrow, so why don't we just get into our jammies and go sleepy time?
They apparently censored Chevy as when he was playing the portrait of Lincoln. He goes, "This never happened to you. Why does it happen to me?" And he says, "Because you're a dip." Apparently, the original line was "because you're a schmuck," and the censors wouldn't let them say schmuck, and they made them change it.
Really?
To dip. Yeah. They say that it was that schmuck means penis in Yiddish, apparently, and someone called them out on that.
Really?
Even funnier that in a sketch where we're talking about all of the slurs,
right,
they were offended by anatomy, a slang for the anatomy. But let's, anyways.
Yeah.
That's so, yeah.
Another instance of what are the censors thinking here?
Right.
What were they thinking letting Gary Weiss come on and introduce his film again? Why does anyone think this is working?
I mean, there weren't any pets in it. At least there's that.
At least there's that.
And it had your boy from Angelo's Pizza. Remember the gag when they used to call Angola during Weekend Update? That was the dude from Angelo's Pizza.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Oh.
I'm saying it was.
I'm going to.
Look it up.
I don't want to watch it again, so I'm not going to watch it for that. Kirstin, what's your feeling on Gary Weiss films, or this particular Gary Weiss film?
So I'm going to admit I don't know a lot about Gary Weiss. You've been watching these earlier episodes far more than I have. So my question is, give me the super top level summary of Gary Weiss. I did think it was weird that someone came on and introduced their movie, and it was a bit of an odd one at that. I had a few laughs, but then it kept going. I was like, okay, I see what you're doing here. Wrap it up. So yes, tell me about Gary Weiss, and did you feel the same way about the length of this?
I'm pretty sure I watched this episode early this morning, and I'm pretty sure Gary Weiss's film is still playing somewhere. It hasn't ended because that's how it felt.
Yes.
Gary Weiss's films are kind of all over the place, right, Brad? I mean,
very
I think
hit or miss.
More often
very
than
hit
not,
or miss is a good way. Yeah. More often a miss.
Yeah. And the last few episodes, they've had him come on to introduce them. Our working theory is because no one else wanted to associate themselves with his films. But this one was about New York and New York's fans, and it was with the song "New York's My Home." I
just didn't know what he was trying to say. I couldn't tell like if he was trying to say the fans are horrible with a juxtaposition of the song, but by the end it seemed like he was liking the fans. So I just didn't know what he was trying to do, and that just made me not like it.
I don't think Gary Weiss knew either, Brad.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I agree with that. You actually, thank you. You captured that really well, which is, I didn't how to interpret it because I didn't know what I was looking at. And exactly that is, I don't think they're jerks. Like, you know, they may sometimes have that tough guy New York thing, but then they're teddy bears. So I was like, what are we doing with this here? And then it kept going. So then I was like, is he helping me see the point? But he didn't.
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
What we need is more singing.
We needed more singing. Oh, are you just going to segue right into the detective agency on that one?
He just wants to get away from Gary Weiss.
Let's get away from Gary.
Yes, please.
Mrs. Mulray. She needs some help.
Yeah.
I love the dame voice. Like, I'm always a fan to this day when, you know, Kate McKinnon was doing it as of a couple of years ago. Like, the whole gumshoe, you know, detective and damsel in distress thing is fun. And then this one turned into a musical. And the timing on this was impeccable.
Yes.
They went from song to speak. That also seemed, it had to have been rehearsed. It was so sharp.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they were both so good.
Like, his Nicholson is so much better in this sketch than it was in The Hornet's Nest. Such a better Jack, I thought.
I mean, I don't disagree there. I thought it was good in the last one. It just was so long in the last one. I think that was the problem. But I agree. Like, he came on and I thought, oh, his Nicholson is on this week. But the two of them singing and dancing, like it's silly, right? They're like breaking into these 50s and 60s songs as they're dressed.
It's so bizarre, but it's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah.
The end song was the easy answer. I wish they had done something a little more clever, but I enjoyed it overall.
Yeah, I noted that. I thought it was a bit of a rough ending, but you could tell they just wanted to give her another number to exit out on.
But again, like watching John even dance during that part was just so much fun. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. In the next sketch, I thought this was great with Gilda and Madeline Kahn doing impressions.
Gilda's back.
And they say, although they tee it up with something like, we're going to do something you've never seen on television before. And I was like, that's when I thought back to it, I was like, that's kind of a stretch. But Madeline does her impression of a baby eating ice cream for the first time.
Very funny.
And then it was very funny.
It was very
and
good.
that was no dialogue, just physical humor, just her face.
It's like another thing that she can do. Like, where'd this come
nailed
from?
it.
Exactly.
Yeah, she was excellent. And then Gilda plays a parakeet learning its first words.
Only Gilda could have done that and pulled it off the way she did.
With the little clicking.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the knowing glance while she's clicking. It felt so random and weird, though. I thought, are they killing time for real?
It kind of felt like theater exercises to kill time, but I just felt like it was better than that.
Well, we haven't seen one of these in a while. We haven't seen one of these, Gilda being Gilda kind of sketches in a little while. And this parakeet thing is something she had kind of wanted to do. Alan Zweibel tells this story about the first day he showed up for work, and they're all sitting in Lauren's office, and he's like scared to death to be there, and he's hiding behind a plant. And like Gilda comes up to him and asks him, "Can you help me be a parakeet? I had this idea. I want to be a parakeet. I don't know what a parakeet would say. Can you help me write it?" and then pitches this idea that Zweibel is going to write this sketch for her being a parakeet. And then all of a sudden, like, here it is, it shows up.
Amazing.
I do appreciate that in a more modern SNL, they would have tried to create an entire sketch around the parakeet. And here they thought, no, just watch her be a parakeet for 30 seconds. Done.
And this is a great little bit. Like, it may have been to kill time, but it's short and funny and it works. And, you know, and again, even as a time filler, it's a very well written piece. Like, it's a great callback when she pulls the towel off. Hello. You know, like it's like nothing's wasted in this, which was just really fun to see. And something so small, it's really thought out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd be remiss to say that it is so sad that we lost them both to ovarian cancer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So utterly sad. Two comedic geniuses, and what a horrible coincidence that they both, you know, suffered from that, and we lost them to it, because they were just magical human beings and so wonderful. So that's a sad thing.
That is.
And then she ended with this beautiful song on stage, and
Lost in the Stars.
Yeah, which felt very theatrical, especially with the lighting at the end, and it felt a little bit different, but no complaints. It just was a different beat to end on.
And we've seen this too a few times this season, where they end on a musical performance that is a little lower key than how the rest of the show may have been to this point, or just kind of feels like you're going out on a down note, which doesn't always feel good. And it doesn't work for me generally, right? Like, we saw, Kirstin, add it to your list to go back and watch the end of the Desi Arnaz episode, because he plays a wonderful musical number at the end of the show, and then it rolls over into Good Nights. And that's kind of like a really fun, high energy way to go out. And it felt like, oh, that was a lot of fun. And this one I felt was a little, I don't know, I guess because of the fun thing we just saw with the parakeet and the baby eating ice cream, this just like felt like, oh, we're bringing it home slowly.
I'm a fan of the more modern 10-to-1 wacky ender.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, like let's if we have time, put up the wild card sketch that people may love or hate, because that'll make you feel something. And yeah, it's a little somber.
Her performance is great. I'm not saying like I think she has a lovely voice. Just this song was a little heavy for me at the end. Brad, what did you think?
We didn't need this.
We didn't need me asking you for your opinion, or we didn't.
We definitely didn't need that.
I thought he was quiet because he was crying. He was just over there sniffling away, shedding a tear. It was beautiful.
I feel like I behaved fairly well this episode.
Wait, just for context, Kirstin.
I mean, damn, people love to sing on this
show.
show.
For context,
does he cry a lot?
No,
Does Brad cry?
Brad's the grumpy one. And so he's trying to turn over a new leaf and find the good in every episode.
Thank you.
Which has been very hard for him. Let's not.
That's enough.
Especially with me trashing Chevy and just trying to take him down.
No, that's exactly what he wants. That's
you
Brad's
saved me
wheelhouse
about 4
right
comments tonight.
That.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot. Goddamn, people love to sing on this show.
Yeah.
I didn't love this one. I mean, she sang 4 times. Monologue, Bride of Frankenstein, Chinatown, now this. This is the only thing I got to say in this episode I thought was a miss. It didn't need, her singing again. I agree with Kirstin. Like, a sketch would have been better here. And she was in so much. For everything that this show was doing, and it was so enjoyable, her by herself singing, to your point, Gary, kind of a slow downer song, not what I needed to go out on. But again, if this is the worst thing in the episode, it's still an amazing episode. You know what I mean? Like, this is still better than a lot of things we've seen. It just, did we need a 4th song? Did we need to end with it? Did it need to be slow? No, but.
Mm-hmm. Especially for someone who's typically known for her very quirky, upbeat, humorous singing and lyrics.
She does a thing in season 3 where she sings, what's the song? It's like Clarence Gatemouth Brown, I Ain't Got No Home. In like the frog in a frog voice. It's amazing. Like that kind of a thing. Like, if she would have done that here, would have been awesome.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if the Hollywood people were trying to boost a singing career for her.
I don't know if it was her. We discussed this last week with Raquel Welch, where the show was running long and Lauren gave her an option. They had to cut something, and it was either a sketch with her and Lorraine or her singing a song. And she wanted to do the song, and Lauren let her do it. It's like, I wonder how much of it was Madeline Kahn just really wanted to sing this song, and so they let her do it.
Yeah.
But the good nights felt, that warmed it up a bit because she's just so genuine and sweet. And I got the real feeling that the cast were very authentically happy to have her there. There were a lot of hugs and good vibes. And so that says a lot to me that they all kind of rush to her and want to embrace her.
She was a great host. I mean,
yeah,
a lot of times we watch episodes, and more times than not, my biggest criticism is that the host isn't in enough. We don't see the host. They're not doing anything. We miss them for a picture. She's in everything, and she's good in everything.
Yep.
So it's like I'm sure they were excited to have her and so appreciative because she knocked it out of the park. I mean, I would put this episode up against anything. This has got to be, I don't know, top 20 all-time episode. This is just solid start to finish. The sketches are smart. They're well written. Most of this, granted, some of it doesn't age well, but the genesis of it, the writing of it, the performances would go up against almost anything we've seen. I mean, aside from Richard Pryor, I'd say Garrett, number 2 behind Richard Pryor this year?
Yeah.
And only because Pryor was like so edgy and going, to those levels. But on a performance, her as a host, probably performance, better.
Yeah, I think she's the best host performance-wise. Yeah.
We got to see all of the cast. Everybody was featured. And even Garrett had his little single piece. Yes. There's great sketches. You got, reoccurring characters, amazing set pieces and stuff. The only knock is that final song. I don't think we needed to do anything for the show. But other than that, it's an amazingly great episode.
Yeah, It was great. Brad, did you notice, I just figured you'll appreciate this, at Good Nights when the cast comes up, John says Happy Mother's Day to the camera, and then afterwards he mouths it and gives a little wave. He's like, Happy Mother's Day, and then waves and winks. I just thought that was adorable. And not the season 3, season 4 John that you'll see, to your point.
Yeah, it was nice.
Well, I think we're all in agreement that this was a great episode. Feels
even
like.
Don Pardo. At the end, did you listen?
Oh,
did you watch all the way
yes.
at the end when he does his "I can be the Beatles" into this bonkers Beatles impression? Like again, to the very end, they're throwing stuff at you, which is great.
He's like, if Lorne Michaels is listening, I can do the Beatles, and I really need the money.
God knows I need the money. This was fun.
Great.
It was so much fun.
Yeah,
especially after last week's, which was a bit of a tricky one. This was so much fun.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you had me revisit this episode because I mean, some of the stuff I just haven't seen in so many years. And it really is, I think what you're doing is so interesting because this is where this all started. And it's, going back and watching it from the beginning is awesome. And I appreciate that I had to start doing it again. And now I have my list. Invitational, Brides of Frankenstein, Will Forte lookalike, and Desi Arnaz. Homework.
We'll give you more heads up for season 2.
Yes.
You can come back.
Great.
Get you back in for another one.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Kirstin, every week we talk about our best bits. What's your best bit from this episode or bits?
Some of my standouts would be there was a moment when the Bride of Frankenstein just let loose and started dancing in circles and having fun. And that's when that sketch just felt really magical. That stands out. Again, the pitter patter of detective agency, the song speak, like there was just a rhythm there that is in my head. We've talked about a lot of them. Like it was, I think those more polished, right Madeline Kahn's wheelhouse type scenes that are sticking out to me. So those would be my favorite bits. And her baby eating ice cream. Brilliant. So stupid, but really well done.
Yeah. So good. Brad, what are your best bits?
This just shows how great this episode is. I had Final Days, Slumber Party, and Not for Ladies Only. So between the two of us, we've now just said at least 2/3 of the episode. And I'm sure we've left something out, Gary.
The only thing that I think you've left out that I really enjoyed was the pantyhose commercial.
I was wondering if that was it. Yeah. This has got to be the episode with the most best bits.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, for me,
impressive.
I think that as soon as I watched The Bride of Frankenstein, I starred that as the best bit.
Oh, you know what? I didn't for some reason. All I did was sit here for 5 minutes and say how amazing I thought it was. Yeah.
Really?
That's a star in
so
your
good.
brain.
Yeah.
This whole episode was great.
Yep.
Kirsten, thank you for coming and doing this with us.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. This was fun. I appreciate it. And I can't wait till the next one.
Great. Well, folks can find you on the SNL network.
That's
and
right.
also some episodes of the SNL Hall of Fame.
That's correct. Yep.
Awesome.
I might be obsessed with SNL.
Maybe. That's okay.
Maybe.
That's,
So be it.
yeah,
I'm in
that's
good
why you're
company,
here.
aren't I?
You are. Yeah, it's great. Well, thank you again for doing this. This was wonderful. I'm glad it was a great show that we all loved. That makes it so much more fun, really. So we appreciate it. Next week, we're going to be talking about season 1, episode 20 with host Diane Cannon and musical guests Leon and Mary Russell. Until then, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
And have a pleasant tomorrow.
This is Don Pardo, and if Lorne Michaels is listening, I do a fantastic impression of the Beatles, and I sure could use the money. She loves me, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves me, yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to hold your hand. I guess he's not listening. Oh, well, good night. Yeah!